Hey, Cameron Davis again, and I'm here with another video for a prediction video for the overall round of 16 bracket for CSL's spring 2016-2017 playoffs. This one's not going to be as researched as my first prediction video I did between GG's and Waterloo, and part of that is because it's due to the nature of CSL's season setup, how it's best of ones on predetermined maps. I feel like you can get a much better read on how a team is when you're looking at an entire best of three where they pick and ban the maps out. Particularly because when you can see how they perform against, when you're looking at them playing against other top teams. Like say if GG's and Waterloo played in CSL together on a predetermined map and they went 16-14, like, yeah, was that a dominant victory? Like, not dominant because it's a 16-14, but was it a close matchup because the teams were that close, or did the map affect that? If you look at a best of three, you can definitely see that, because like even if say GG's beat Waterloo, this is all hypothetical, but GG's beat Waterloo 16-14 on Cash, and then beat Waterloo 16-7 on Mirage, is you can look at that and see if is Waterloo just really good on Cash, but they still couldn't beat GG's, or another thing you can look at is like, or GG's just like really, really good at Mirage. And you can figure a lot more stuff out when you're looking at all that stuff. Plus, I haven't figured out, I don't know if you can do this on Sivo or not, but I haven't figured out how to actually look to see who picked and banned what. And the few times I've actually tried to reach out to teams, they don't respond because they don't know who I am. Plus, no one checks their Sivo inboxes anyway. Also, unlike other prediction videos that you see for particularly like top level competitive Counter-Strike, when I give a 2-0-2-1, that's not so much a prediction on how I think it's actually going to play out. That's partly because figuring out a map pool for a team is virtually impossible. And again, that plays into how CSL works with the best of one on predetermined maps. It's virtually possible to collect a map pool unless I go to every single team individually. And again, I don't really have access to what's the word? I don't really have access to contact these people and confidently contact these people. Whatever, you guys know what I mean. And so otherwise I'd have to just make random guesses on that. And with CSL's best of one predetermined maps, that's like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And so when I give a 2-0-2-1, that's going to be more indicative of how close I think these teams are in power rather than how I think it's actually going to play out. Because depending on a map pool, two teams that are very close, it could still go 2-0, or there could be or a 2-1 could happen between a team that's really good versus a team that's really bad if the bad team if they're like one trick ponies on one particular map and they can get that map in. So anyway, the first one is actually going to be the most interesting match here. I'm just going down the list. I don't know if this is going to be order these going to be played in. They schedule them on their own. Yada. But it's going to be between CSULB Senpai Squad versus RMU Eagles. This is going to be the 32 seed versus the 16 seed. CSULB just barely squeaked by into playoffs after having a less than good season. They had a lot of their victories were close victories. They had a lot of semi-close defeats. But because they're the 32 seed, they faced the number 1 seed, which was Montreal Falcons in the round of 32, and Senpai Squad beat the Montreal Falcons 2-0, completely unexpected. Like, if it was another team that was in the lower end of the bracket, maybe, but of all the teams to beat them was CSULB Senpai Squad, and if you look back on their performance during the spring, completely unexpected. Even considering NFO, from what I can tell, was vacant on the map and just didn't show up that day, I still wouldn't have expected CSULB, looking at their previous performances, to have done this. And so if this is indicative of CSULB having gotten their shit together and actually figured out how to play better Counter-Strike than they had been previously, then I'm actually going to give this to them 2-1 over RMU. RMU didn't have the best spring either, and also in their round of 32, they beat Georgia Tech Esports A, who have, I don't know what's happened to them. I felt like they could have been, like in the fall, they could have been a contender for like the mid-top slots, but recently they haven't really been performing that well in CSL or AVGL, and so them beating them 2-0 doesn't give me much confidence that if this CSULB upset versus Montreal, if that's indicative of, if that's something that they can keep up, then I'm definitely gonna give this to them 2-1 over RMU. However, if this was just a fluke, then I wouldn't be surprised if I see RMU 2-0 in CSULB. Second matchup is going to be UCSC Slugs versus UBC. As a team, UBC is more T-side favored, while UCSC is a little more balanced. Like they can perform pretty well on either T side or a CT side. But this really will be a close matchup. This is probably gonna be the second close matchup, behind one that's gonna be further down that I'm not gonna talk about yet. And just even though I think the matchup I just talked about is gonna be close, I'm not considering this one just because there's so many unknowns whether CSULB's performance against Montreal is something they can keep up or not, so I'm keeping it out of this discussion. I think this is going to be the second close matchup that we have, but I am going to give it to UCSC Slugs 2-1 over UBC, even though one of UCSC Slugs' stronger players, Meeks, is apparently not on the CSL roster anymore. He's only playing on their roster in AVGL. I don't know why that is. He's not listed on the roster for the playoffs right now. For CSL, I thought he was, but I may just be mixing up both the leagues. Then we're gonna have GGs versus Aggies. 2-0 sweep by GGs. They've been really strong. I don't see any plans. I don't see anything to convince me that they're gonna not be strong anymore. Aggies, they're not a bad team, but I just don't think they're gonna be able to hold up with GGs. Like, sorry. Ryerson versus Danza Bricks. Danza, they're on the 5th seed while Ryerson on the 12th seed. I think that's, I don't exactly know how seeding worked. I'm pretty sure that it's they sort them by win-loss, like just match score, and then afterwards there's gonna be a lot of like 7-0, 6-1s. How to sort that is round win. And so I think because Danza actually got quite a few number of forfeit wins, that may have factored into their round win, and so I think that's why they're a higher seed. Nonetheless, I still think Ryerson's a much stronger team than Danza. And so that's 2-0 on that one. Waterloo, next one's gonna be Waterloo versus Mean Green. The thing about that is that I do think overall Waterloo is a better team than Mean Green, but they have been struggling a little bit as of late, looking at their matches that they've played previously in AVGL. And Mean Green have been able to do some pretty big upsets most recently in the round of 32 versus UT Dallas Comets, where they 2-0'd them. That's a 27 seed versus 6 seed, and even though I talked about how the exact numbers is a little bit kind of up in the air, it's still like top of the seed versus bottom of the seed, and they 2-0 upset that. And so if Waterloo continue to struggle, and actually if their struggles become worse, I wouldn't be too surprised if Mean Green come out with a victory here, but I'm still going to give this 2-1 to Waterloo. Next one, and this is, I think, going to be the closest one. It's going to be Fiven versus RIT. I'm going to give this to Fiven 2-1, and that's strictly because RIT are more prone to tilting than Fiven. And so just having that factor thrown in, whether RIT tilt or not, I'm going to give this to Fiven. However, RIT did drop out of AVGL, partly because the core roster they wanted to use, I think AVGL requires that all your teammates be full-time students, and one of their core 5 was only a part-time student at the school, and so they didn't want to play with having to go back and forth between AVGL and CSL. They didn't want to have to keep swapping members in and out depending on who can perform in which league, and so they decided to drop out of AVGL so they can just focus on CSL. And CSL is a bigger prize pool, and so that also doesn't surprise me if we had to pick one. So hopefully them dropping out of AVGL has given them is going to allow them to put adequate time to prepare for Fiven without having to worry about another matchup that they're going to have, particularly because they were in a pretty... Were they? No, they weren't in my group of death. Were they in AVGL? What's my group of death? I mean, group of death is group A, but I don't think they were in that. No, they're in group C, which was a kind of other, like, dark horse group of death. Yeah, like, they would have had to play against... Who are they playing up? Who are they scheduled to play this week? Oh, Ipe. Never mind. That's irrelevant right now. But anyway, if they can prepare and they don't tilt, then I think they can stack up against Fiven. But I'm still gonna just edge this towards Fiven 2-1. But I think this is gonna be the closest matchup we're going to see here. Number 7, Eleni Esports Ignis, Team Ignis versus UCLA, 2-0. Ignis is one of the stronger schools we have here right now, even though only seed 10. Again, that's around win ratio, which I think is kind of a shitty way to seed. But I understand the limits. I understand how limited we are here in collegiate esports and like going by the particular leagues. But Eleni Ignis, and they've been looking. They're only seed 10 just because they, I guess they didn't have the strongest start. Let me actually look at this. I should have looked at this beforehand. Point is, they look very strong to me, and they didn't have a clean round of 32. They went 2-1 against KSU, but KSU is not a bad team. What is this? Ignis. Yeah, what the hell? They went 7-0. They didn't let a single. Yeah, Ignis they're gonna 2-0 UCLA. UCLA did beat SJSU Savages 2-0, but honestly, if knowing how SJSU has played and how they've kind of treated their season, it doesn't surprise me. They don't take this. This year they haven't taken their kind of like seriously at all, and they don't really play the game. They don't practice the game outside of their matches. They're just they've gotten far enough right now. Just due to the fact that they've had the experience. There are last year's champions, but even beating them 2-0 is not. Ignis is going to take it 2-0. This is probably going to be the biggest. I think this is going to be the second biggest stomp outside of GG's versus Aggies. Then the last one we have is going to be UH Premier versus West Virginia. West Virginia came in as the 31 seed, while UH Premier came in as the 18 seed. West Virginia, they kind of had an unlucky group. They had quite a few strong teams in their group, which explains why they came in as the 31st seed. They only made it to the round of 16 because UCSD Triton, who was the second seed, actually forfeit. I don't know why they did that, but that's how they advanced. And so I'm going to give this 2-0 to UH Premier, who are the 18 seed, just because... Honestly, West Virginia, like I said, they had an unlucky group, but particularly when I can't see how they performed against UCSD because they didn't, it was a forfeit win. There's nothing here to give me any sort of confidence that they can match up against UH Premier, which is not a top team by any means, but still a relatively strong team compared to West Virginia. Yeah. I think that's all of them. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with all of them. Okay. Thanks for watching. I think a lot of these are going to be kind of matches to watch. A lot of them are going to be stomps. There's only going to be 2 matches that are... Only 3 matches that I'm actually kind of interested in, which is CSULB versus RMU, UCSC Slugs versus UBC, and then Fiven versus RIT. The rest are either stomps or teams that I don't feel are going to be relevant later in the bracket. Like GG's, I think. I'm just looking at the bracket right now. In fact, let me show this. No. I'm just gonna make another video later on once we hit the round of 8. Another prediction video on that going through into the finals. So sorry for the really sloppy ending, but thanks for watching.